Very good afternoon, friends, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ganesh from HDFC Securities, and we would like to welcome each one of you to this edition of our Guru Gyan series, where we have industry experts come and share their perspective with us on the markets and the investments. Markets have rallied at the same time, there is an element of volatility as well. Okay, so today we are going to be discussing on how long will this rally sustain and how we as investors should be looking at the current scenario with respect to our investments. And to throw more light on that, we have with us a very distinguished personality from the industry, Mr. Mahesh Patil, Chief Investment Officer of Aditya Birla AMC. Mr. Mahesh, always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us, and it's over to you now.
Yeah, thank you, Ganesh, and good evening to all our listeners over here. Yeah, so yeah, as Ganesh mentioned, it's been a pretty interesting time since the COVID crisis broke out, right? We've seen the fastest recovery in the market. On the bottom, the market is up almost 50% and is just about 7% down from its 7 to 8% down from its peak before the COVID crisis. So how is it looking right now from here? Because I think most of us would have got surprised by the sharp move, because we all know that this crisis, COVID crisis, is a pretty big one, right, in terms of its magnitude. And we haven't seen this kind of a impact on the GDP, which it has had for a long time, right, in many decades. At least I haven't seen that. And despite that, we've still actually going through that crisis, and we still the market actually reflate back. So why is that happened, right? I mean, we first look into that and then look at how it looks, how the markets look from here, and how to really play this market from here on. So I think, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that the overall impact on the GDP is large, and we've seen that, right? In India, this last quarter GDP number was down minus 25%, and according to us, the full year, this fiscal year, FY21 GDP will decline by around 5 to 6% or so, which is the kind of we have never seen a negative GDP growth even out during the global financial crisis, and that will have its toll, okay, on the corporate earnings. We'll see that this year the earnings for Nifty will be down by around 10 to 11% negative growth rate. But I think the only change why the market has rallied so much is that globally, after the crisis broke out, initially there was a big sell-off because a lot of funds were caught off guard. And equally soon, I think we've seen the experience of the central bankers and governments from the past crisis during the global financial crisis. They were quick to take stock of situation, and realizing the magnitude of this problem, they quickly came in and announced a large monetary stimulus. When I say monetary stimulus, means infusing a lot of liquidity and cutting interest rates, right, keeping interest rates low. That was done. And also the government did a large fiscal stimulus. That means government increased their spending, increased the kind of payments they need to do to people who have been displaced because of this crisis globally, or sectors or companies which have been displaced. They have actually given out and given them financial support, and that has led to a sharp recovery, at the expectation of a sharp V-shaped recovery in the economy, which earlier was looking a bit difficult. And I think also as the crisis panned out, as the COVID cases peaked out, slowly we are seeing normalcy coming back. The lockdowns are getting lifted and things coming back on track. So that expectation of a sharp V-shaped recovery, the reflation rally in the economy, is what has led to the markets also coming back. Globally, we've seen US market is almost near to its pre-COVID levels. In fact, the Nasdaq index is significantly higher than the pre-COVID levels, because some of the technology companies are actually benefiting out of that, because a lot of people are moving towards digital online platforms, and the technology companies which are providing the solutions are actually benefiting rather than getting impacted of this crisis. But having said that, that's one of the reasons, and also some expectations that there is the fatality rate is now not as large. There is some medication which is available in terms of few drugs like remdesivir or favipiravir, which has been now made available, and also some kind of a vaccine, okay, which could be say around 3 to 6 months down the line. So that has revived hopes, and market is starting to look beyond the next 3 months, 6 months, and looking say into FY22. It's starting to look how things will be from that perspective. So even while this quarter, last quarter, and even this quarter, you will see earnings declining, markets and stocks prices are just ignoring that. The second factor has been that the liquidity which has been there is because of very low interest rates, and even from individual perspective for individual investors, their participation in the market has gone up tremendously. And this is a phenomenon what we have seen across the world, in US, in Europe, in China, and India also. You've seen that the retail participation is at an all-time high as a percentage of total volumes. So what's happening here is that individuals sitting at home, and also I think the savings are there because a lot of expenditure which one is doing has come down, and people are actually participating in the market to some extent, even speculating in the market, because there's enough time which is there at play, and I think there is some amount of liquidity which is there. Interest rates are low. In fact, even in India also, if you look at the fixed deposit rates, the bank fixed deposit rates have come down to 5%. So where do you put that money, right? Which can yield you slightly higher return. And equity markets provided that conduit, especially after it corrected from the bottom and it started to move up. People, investors were able to participate a bit and then got some gains, and they were more boldened. And I think we've seen a lot of money coming into the market from the retail channel, and that has also helped the market to climb back pretty fast, and that's where it is at this point in time. So these were some of the factors, I would say, which have led to the sharp rally, and our Indian market is to some extent just mirroring what has happened globally, right? So we were lagging behind the recovery what we saw in say US, S&P or Nasdaq, and then slowly we have caught up with that in the last couple of months. So it's a global rally and recovery what we are seeing, and Indian market is also chugging along with that. Having said that, I think the expectation of sharp recovery globally is because of the larger stimulus package which the governments have announced over there and the sharp rate cuts. In India, though, I would say that the economic recovery would be fairly slow and gradual. It won't be as fast as what we see globally, because in India, we were actually, even before the crisis, we have been going through a slowdown in the economy. That was a pain period which was there, and the impact of the COVID crisis is still continuing. I mean, we have seen the number of cases in India increasing while the lockdowns and these things are being opened up, but the virus is spreading around. It's getting into the now from the metros into these tier 2, tier 3 cities. So that impact will be there a bit. But more importantly, I think the ability of the government to provide the necessary fiscal stimulus and to stimulate the economy, the room is very limited for that. So while the RBI has done its bit in terms of providing liquidity, and there is now abundant liquidity into the system, I mean, system-wide liquidity would be around 8 to 9 lakh crores, which is there. And they have cut also, interest rates have been cut, as you know, the policy rates have been cut sharply. But the direct fiscal stimulus which needs to be given to the industries or sectors which have been indisposed because of the COVID crisis or job losses which have happened, trying to compensate those people with in terms of earnings, I think that direct stimulus is lacking, and it's not that big, right? So while the government announced a large package of around 20 lakh crores, most of it is liquidity infusion and giving some kind of a credit guarantee to banks and institutions to go out and lend. So to that extent, I think the recovery would be probably slightly more gradual and muted. Also, the government needs to keep in mind the global rating agencies also, because they don't want to increase the fiscal deficit and the government borrowing, which can impair our global rating. So these are the constraints which the government faces, and as a result, you will see a slow and steady recovery over here. And I think that is something which we need to be mindful about. Having said that, I think India still has got long-term enablers in place for the economy to, once we come out of this crisis and once things stabilize, India can still have a potential long-term growth rate of around anywhere between 5 to 6% kind of a growth rate, which we think we should be able to attain that. And from a long-term perspective, I think Indian growth rate looks still more attractive and faster than some of the other economies. While in US and other developed markets, you might see a sharper recovery in the initial period, but on a sustainable long-term basis, their growth will still remain muted because of the fact that I mean, they're the uh, overall penetration levels or consumption levels are already pretty high. The government debt to GDP ratio is fairly large, and there are less avenues for growth, both from a consumption or from an investment standpoint. Whereas in India, the demographics are supportive for consumption, and even on investments, I think infrastructure there is enough scope for investments, okay, to take place over a longer term period of point in time. And the government has also in this period done a lot of structural changes, I would say, because every crisis provides an opportunity, and the government sees this opportunity for India to shift gears and step up its investments, more in terms of foreign investment, FDI into the country, rise India as a superpower in terms of manufacturing at a time when a lot of global companies are looking at alternative to their supply chain from China because of the trade relations, okay, between US and China. And after the COVID crisis, they've seen that relying on China for a lot of the imports can be challenging. So they're looking at alternatives, and India can rise to the occasion and provide that support to the global economy for manufacturing in specific areas like chemicals, pharmaceuticals, textiles, electronic components. And the government has also come out with an incentive plan, a production link incentive plan to support and give incentives for industries or promoters, investments who want to make investments to cater to the global market, or for import substitution. So I think some of these things are a lot of reforms I think we've seen earlier in on ease of doing business, but the softer reforms on labor and land are now being initiated, and we see a lot of states taking initiative over there, like the UP government and the Rajasthan government have taken initiative on the labor and land reforms. So I think that can provide more long-term sustainable growth for India, and that's why the picture for India from a long-term perspective for global investors will remain fairly attractive, is what I think. So that's the longer-term picture. And overall, I think on the macro situation, things are fairly stable for India, especially on the external front. When I say external front, means our forex reserves, our current account is fairly under control. In fact, because of the slowdown in imports and gold imports specifically, we've seen our trade deficit has actually turned positive, right? So there is enough surplus, balance of payment surplus, which is there, and we have seen a ballooning of our forex reserves, which is a very healthy situation to be in. And also we've seen good amount of FDI investments into the country, large ticket money coming into, especially the Reliance deal which we saw, okay, in Reliance Jio, and couple of other inflows. So I think on external front we are fairly stable, which is good for an emerging economy like ours to have a very stable balance of payment situation, which means that the rupee is fairly stable, and that is good from a long-term perspective. Overall, I think on the global front, the view is that the reflation rally will continue on the economy. I think economy, in fact, the indicators in US, Europe, and China has already reached the pre-COVID levels, and I think that should remain. Global interest rates will remain low for an extended period of time. The Fed has said that they will keep interest rate low for the zero for almost next 2 years, and even if inflation goes up slightly higher, they would still not change their policies, what they stated recently. So that means there is going to be enough liquidity at very low interest rates available globally, which will find its way, okay, into risky asset class, and which can give you slightly better returns. So that is good for liquidity and money supply into say asset classes like equity, which can give you slightly long-term higher returns. But at the same time, also, I think there's a view that the US dollar will weaken, and we've seen US dollar has weakened by almost 7-8% in the last 3 months, because overall US debt will balloon, and we are seeing that the lot of global investors into the US dollar, like China and this thing, are no longer buying government US securities. They are looking to build reserves, to building their gold, buying gold. So there's a view that dollar, which had a pretty strong period in the last few years, will probably weaken, and that is good news for emerging markets, because a weaker dollar means that money will move from developed markets, the US, into emerging markets, and that is a kind of a reversal of what we saw in the last decade, where emerging markets underperformed the developed markets, and the flow there also was not too great. So that is good news for India also, because if money moves into emerging markets over a longer term, and that's a long-term trend, then you will see foreign portfolio investors, FI money, into Indian markets can only increase in the coming years, and that will be also supportive for the market from a liquidity standpoint. So that is the broad global macro headlines. Having said that, the reflation rally, you can see some kind of there's some amount of a pent-up demand also, which is there, which we need to see, and you might see 1 or 2 months where things can slow down a bit, and the sharp rally what we've seen globally can see a correction, short-term correction from here, which we should be prepared. And when that happens, I think India will also participate with that. So our view is that market from a long-term perspective looks, if you look at a long, if I take a 3-year view on the markets, and we assume that there's a normalcy in the next 1 year or so, and India goes back to its long-term growth trajectory, which has been there in the last 5 years, last decade or so, then the market from here also, from the current level, also looks fairly attractive. I mean, based on our model, which we have looked at, not just the price to earnings multiple, because the P multiple looks very expensive at this point in time, because the earnings are fairly depressed. But if you look at other parameters like the price to book value multiple, or if you look at the market cap to GDP multiple, or if you look at the yield, okay, what is there on earnings, on the equity earnings yield vis-a-vis the bond yields, because one should not forget that the interest rates, our view is that interest rates will remain low for a long period of time, and you are in an environment where there is financial repression. That means interest rates are going to remain low, and the central banks will keep interest rates low. So with low interest rates, what you're getting on the bank deposit or the government bonds, the multiples for equities can expand, and that's what we see. So if you look at all these parameters, then from a long-term perspective, over a 3-year period, we still see the market can give you around 11 to 12% return from here, which is, I think, fairly good return. It might not look very exciting for many people, considering what equities have given in the longer run, but you should look at in context of the fact that your risk-free rate, or the GSEC bond yield rate, is around 6% or so. So that's a good return on top of that, almost 6 to 7%, almost 6% higher return, which is we think is a fair thing to expect, okay, for investing into equities. So that's a long-term view. From a very near-term perspective, with the market rally, what we're seeing, and the fact that there are some challenges in terms of, at least from an Indian context, in terms of the recovery, what we are seeing, the spread of the COVID virus is still, number of cases are going up, and the earnings recovery will be slightly slow and gradual. Near-term market looks to be fairly priced. When I say near-term, means the next 3 months or so, and there could be marginal downside from here. I think we think that downside won't be very large, because there'll be buyers at lower levels. Many investors are waiting to invest money into this market as a correction, and because of the abundant liquidity, I think you will see that money coming in any correction. So we don't see a correction of say more than around 10% from these levels. Okay, that's the base case. Obviously market can surprise you negatively, but that's the base case kind of a correction we're looking at, and one should be prepared for that. Doesn't know when that will happen, but that is something one needs to factor in. So it's prudent to somebody investing into the market to continue with the investment SIP, because longer term we think the markets can still give you decent returns from here, but not to be too aggressive at these levels. If you're making a lump sum payment, probably stagger it out over a period of time is what our advice would be. And on the market also, we are agnostic towards market capitalization, like large cap, mid cap, small cap. We think there is opportunity across the board. The mid and small cap segment has underperformed quite a long time. Since Jan 2018, we have seen that the mid cap and small cap started to underperform, and they continue, and they have underperformance vis-a-vis the Nifty is it's like a kind of a almost 7 to 8 year low. So relatively, the mid and small cap space looks attractive, but there are challenges also in the mid and small cap space, because in an environment when the economy is where it is, there are many mid and small cap companies which will struggle to even survive. So one has to be very careful over there while investing into that space. But there are good companies available in that area which can potentially give you good returns from a next 3 year perspective. So we are, as I said, agnostic. We find wherever we find value across large cap, mid cap, and small cap, we are looking to add that in our funds. And from that perspective, I would say if you want to invest into the market through the mutual fund route, a large allocation should be done through a multi-cap fund, which invest across the market cap spectrum, right? Large cap, mid cap, and small cap. I think that's where the larger allocation should be, followed by a large cap fund, and then some allocation can be made to small and mid cap segment. As I said, from a longer term perspective, is what advice would be. But at the same time, I think considering the fact that your interest rates are going to remain low, and that's what we think, a lot of investors won't really put into certain, because equity markets will still be volatile, right? Long-term returns will still be okay, but so who are worried about the volatility, they can look at other funds like the asset allocation fund. An asset allocation fund is a fund which invests across the spectrum, asset classes like equity, debt, which is fixed income, gold, and even now commodities is what is available. So that reduces the risk and reduces the volatility of the returns, and also one can dynamically move the equity allocation depending on the relative attractiveness of the equity, and that's a call which the fund manager takes. So we have also launched a couple of asset allocation funds we think can be a good way for investors who want to move some money from debt because of low returns, but also worried about the volatility in equity funds. And another category could be the balance advantage fund, which is also a kind of an asset allocation fund, but between debt and equity, where the equity allocation is managed based on a model on which tells us, okay, how much allocation one needs to have on equity, depending on the various factors which I mentioned, like price to book value, multiple, P multiple, the earnings yield to bond yield, all these factors which we look in. So these are the other products which one can look at if somebody is looking at slightly lower volatility. Amongst the broader themes and sectors which we think, will do well going forward, while currently everything is coming in from a lower base and everything will start to look better as we move forward. But I think pharma is one sector which we've been positive now for last 1 year, has done very well and has given super returns. We also launched the pharma fund around a year back. That sector will still do fairly okay. We're positive on pharma. I think domestic pharma will continue to grow at a steady pace. On US export opportunities also, there are new opportunities which are emerging because of the China factor, and especially on the API, pharma companies are taking some market share from the Chinese players. So that sector should see a fairly reasonable growth going forward. Apart from that, auto sector is also now coming back, bouncing back from the lows. We're seeing the demand has started to come back, and people are now looking at personal mobility, right? After the COVID crisis, people not traveling through metro, through trains and buses, and looking at their own mode of vehicle. So there is a good demand coming back for two-wheelers and even for low-end four-wheelers, which is driving auto sales, and that segment is also coming back. And one broad interesting thing what we are seeing is the rural economy is doing fairly well. So in this crisis, the rural area economy has not been impacted so much. A, because of the government support to the rural sector through various schemes which they have done, like the NREGS, and also dispensation of amount to the farmers. So that has helped, and also the farm prices, food prices have also been going up. So and this time around the monsoons last was good, so the crop production has been fairly good. So the rural economy is done well, and companies which are focused or whose sales are dependent on the rural economy are doing very well. So we have seen that in this last 2 months, the tractor sales have been actually positive, okay, despite the COVID crisis. So that's another segment of the economy, and which is doing well, and companies which are catering to the rural segment, be it in the two-wheelers, agrochemicals, fertilizer companies, or even some of the consumer companies which have got a stronger rural focus, we think will continue to do well. Apart from that, the other broader themes we like are telecom also, we are positive on. I think we've seen the consolidation in the telecom industry, and possibly demand for data, and this thing is going to go up. That will drive ARPU. So telecom looks good. The banking and financial services sector is going through a lot of pain, and it's underperformed quite a bit because of the COVID crisis. There is a concern about NPAs increasing for the banking sector, and we've seen the large banks, overall banks have underperformed, and NBFCs have underperformed. But there also we are seeing that a lot of consolidation is going to happen over there, and the larger banks, which have got good liability franchise, have got a good promoter, and managing the asset fairly well, they will continue to gain market share and grow. So while the overall banking sector growth, credit growth will be muted, we'll see a larger consolidation there. Both on the NBFC side also there will be large consolidation, on the banking side also. So there are opportunities even in the banking and financial services side. And I think fundamentally, again, we think the discretionary consumption, specifically the small ticket discretionary consumption, will come back fairly well, and we are positive on that. We're seeing a good demand for coming in for consumer durables, especially home appliances. Amid the COVID crisis, people are seeing that they need to have a lot of gadgets at home, okay, which will help them to do their daily chores, okay, and we're seeing a good demand for some of the consumer durables and home appliances like washing machine, dishwashers, mixer, grinders. But India, I think these small ticket discretionary items, I think, will continue to grow. That's a category which is underpenetrated. The per capita income goes up, rural penetration going up, consolidation, in some cases shift from unorganized to organized. So that's again a long-term theme which we like. Consumer small ticket discretionary, both on consumer durables or even in retail. I think that's an area which we see a good long-term growth potential. Metals, global cyclical recovery is also driving the metal prices up. So we've seen steel prices and aluminum prices go up, and metal stocks are also doing well. So I think by and large across the sectors, except for few sectors which are getting impacted because of the social distancing, like the airlines industry or malls or retail, by and large, I think we are seeing recovery across the board coming in. So that's the broader outlook on the sector front. I think I'll stop here. We can move on to the question answers, where we can address some of the other queries which the investors would have. Yeah, so Ganesh, we can move to the Q&A session.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. I think it was quite an insightful session. I'm sure a lot of doubts would have got clarified. However, we do have some questions which I will bounce it off to you. Okay. So, yeah. So the first one is on the real estate piece, actually. More companies opting for work from home for a sizable chunk of their workforce. What kind of impact would this have on the real estate sector? What is your view on that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And again, real estate is a large part of an economy, and it's very important. It's not only from prices, but if you look at for economy to come back, real estate has to contribute, because large part of our investment cycle as a part of GDP, it comes from the real estate sector, right? Which is your private private investments, right? So it's large part of the gross fixed capital formation. So in real estate, there are two parts to it. One is the commercial real estate, and the second one is the residential part. So commercial real estate, I think, had a very decent run in the last few years, and has been growing steadily and been performing well. But you're right, I think amidst the culture, there's a big change in the behavior in terms of how companies are looking at and how employees are going to work. Okay, so work from home can actually, some of it can remain permanent even after coming out of this crisis. And increasingly, companies are looking at how much percentage of the employees will work from home in a bit reduced cost, and also improve employee productivity, because a lot of time goes in travel. So you could see that in future, and many companies already stated that, especially in the IT sector, for example, TCS has said that over the next 3 to 5 years, they would have 60 to 70% of their employees working from home, right? We are also looking at whether, say, around 15-20% of employees can work from home. So that will free up a lot of office space, okay, which could happen. Again, that doesn't mean that everything will come up, get freed up, because the employees will also have to come to office at some point. But clearly on the commercial real estate, I think that could be a bit of a dampener, because if the demand for workspace is not going to be that big, and the growth over there could be a challenge. So by and large, I think we are getting slightly more negative or slightly more pessimistic on the commercial real estate side in terms of demand and overall the pricing environment. So that's what I think our view is. Having said that, on the residential side, which has seen a long elongated period of downturn for the last now 5-6 years, and prices have remained fairly stable, that's an interesting area where it's still going through a pain period. There are challenges which are there on the developer side. There are big concerns about a lot of developers in financial trouble and using NPAs for the banking and financial services sector on the real estate front. But at the same time, the real estate sector is also now looking, it's, if I look at from the affordability index, right, and the real estate prices, okay, where they are, I think it's looking, I mean, that chart is looking fairly attractive. I mean, it's I mean, the best I've seen in the last 8 years, right? Where the affordability is. See, affordability is a function of your income levels, right? The interest rates, because people buy a house mainly through a mortgage loan. So income levels are slowly going up over the years. Property prices have remained more or less flattish, and interest rates have come down. So now the mortgage rates are now, I was just seeing that SBI and some of the banks are now offering rates at around 6%. It's a 7% rate, yeah, just below 7%, 6.9%, which is almost the lowest what I had seen, right? This was the same rate we saw in 2003, 2004, 04 or 5. I remember I had taken a loan at that point in time at around 7%. After that, that was the lowest rate what we have seen. So all these factors are actually conducive for real estate to pick up. Or the only challenge is that we need to get the right size and the right pricing, or our ticket size, right? Which also now new developers are coming in. So real estate sector also gone through a challenge because of the RERA. So there are a lot of small developers are seeing a pain, and supply of inventory is also getting down. So while there is inventory, the real good inventory is low. So I won't be surprised if the residential real estate sector starts to pick up slowly over the next 1 year time frame, and that could be interesting. In fact, if somebody is looking to buy, okay, property for consumption, okay, not for investment, because I don't see real estate will give you very high returns, but this is a good time actually to buy a property where you are getting the best in terms of the prices, in terms of the interest rates, okay, and I don't think property prices will go down further. Yeah, there could be some pressure, okay, because of some of the real estate projects coming under stress, but that discount is anyways available if you negotiate with a developer. So I think if the government is also wanting to really support the sector to come up, because that generates a lot of employment there's a lot of demand also comes in real estate in terms of steel, cement, and other areas. So we are seeing incentives being given for affordable housing. All these things, I think, will lead to slow pickup and activity picking up in the real estate sector. We see the state governments also now cut stamp duty, right? Maharashtra has announced relief in stamp duty, right, of 3% until December. That will nudge people who are waiting on the sidelines and been waiting, so they could probably come in and purchase. So I think positive on residential real estate from here and negative on the commercial real estate is what our view is.
Great, thank you so much for that. Okay, the next question is from Mr. Siddharth. Okay, now who would like to know that market has been very attractive 3 years ago. We all know about it. Now, with an optimistic view over the next 3 to 4 years, even though the visibility seems very low, what sectors would you feel would contribute to the growth? However, you did touch upon pharma and auto and certain other sectors. And to add to that, probably how sustainable would these sectors be? Because coming out of a pandemic and these sectors, there's a sudden spurt in these sectors. How sustainable would these sectors be?
Yeah, so you're right. I think, I mean, taking a slightly medium long term, I think we believe that India's growth rate, overall GDP sustainable, I think we should reach back to around 5 to 6% kind of a growth. And the sectors which will contribute will be the same traditional sectors, I think, which will do well. I think one clearly on the consumption side, I think in India, the low ticket consumption, basic consumption sectors will continue to do well. Again, there is some transfer of income which is happening from the rich, okay, to the lower end of the pyramid, and there is scope for driving penetration also on the consumer side. So consumer companies, okay, will continue to show a steady growth, is what we think. So that's the sector which I think will continue. Secondly, is if you look at on the investment side, I think private sector investments will pick up, but not in the larger sectors, but in the smaller sectors. Government is giving incentives for manufacturing to come up. They have given this production link incentives now to various sectors. They have rolled it out for the electronic sector, right, for the manufacture of mobile phones and other electronics, and we're seeing some investments coming up over there. I think the same incentives, okay, will be given to the other sectors also, okay, where we see a lot of import substitution happen. Textile and other sectors, I think they should start to pick up. So investments will pick up in some of these areas. So that I think will pick up. I think the real estate sector also we think will slowly start to move up, because that will also contribute to the overall economic growth, which has been now depressed for the last 4 to 5 years. I think there are enablers in place, as I mentioned, in terms of availability of interest rates. Property prices have also come down. The ticket sizes also, developers are now making homes more suitable, okay, not large houses, but smaller ones. So that sector can also revive actually and contribute to the overall economic growth. And that will mean that sectors like cement, for example, will do well. Cement demand is driven to a large extent by residential and even by infra side. We see that demand could pick up, and there also the industry has got fairly consolidated, and there's a pricing discipline which is there, so that sector should do well. Apart from that, as I mentioned, the cyclical sectors, global cyclicals also, like metals, for example, especially in steel, where India has got a competitive advantage in terms of the iron ore. I think there also you should see a recovery, and we're seeing that steel prices have started to move up. The domestic demand has been weak, but it's slowly now picking up. So that could do well. Then, yeah, so I think some of these sectors I think will start to contribute. Even IT sector, for example. In fact, the IT sector is, I mean, there was a concern that because of the COVID crisis, you will see a slowdown in the global economy and IT spend will go down. And we saw that in the global financial crisis, when the IT sector saw a significant impact and decline in growth. Now, what we are seeing is that after the COVID crisis, a lot of companies are finding that they are actually underinvested into digital. and a lot of things are moving on a digital platform. Customers are using digital to really transact and to buy things, and also digital is helping companies to improve their productivity on the supply chain. So globally, there is actually a step up in spending now. Companies talking contemplating to invest, while the overall spend might not go up too much on IT, but towards digital, there's a big spend increase which is going to happen, and that is actually improving the outlook for the IT companies in terms of growth. We've been talking to many companies. They're saying many global companies are looking to spend on digital and increase their spends over the next 2 to 3 years. So the IT sector also, where India is well placed, and a lot of the domestic IT companies have now moved up the value chain in not just being a bread and butter outsourcing or doing the application and development software, but also moving on to the digital and are providing turnkey solutions to corporate to improve their digital footprint and improve their productivity and sales. So I think that sector also should do well, and that India is, as you know, a large IT exporter, and you could see that sector pick up. It's been slightly weak for that sector in terms of employment in the last 3-4 years, but if that spends pick up and we are seeing the early signs, we could see the sector again coming back. So I think, yeah, these are some of the areas, okay, which we should see. And then finally, it's the banking and financial services sector, which has been now struggling, and we're seeing the credit growth has been in low single digits. That might still continue a bit because overall large investments, capex, okay, and the government spending would still be low on infrastructure and other areas. So that sector will be slightly slow unless the government comes up, okay, with a plan to attract a lot of foreign investors on the infrastructure side. But one good thing happening on these infrastructure assets, the government is now looking at to monetize some of these assets through the InvIT and the InvIT route, right?
Right.
And there are a lot of global investors, especially the pension funds, are looking at these assets to generate a decent yield returns. So a lot of the road assets, for example, which already the government is trying to monetize that through the InvIT route, and that money which is released is being pumped back into investment into infrastructure. So if they were to really get this thing going, then you could see infrastructure investments also pick up over a period of time. So I think it should be across the board. Some part coming in because of the government policy of Make in India, giving production incentives. Okay, India becoming a chain for global supply chain, and especially in industry like chemicals, for example, right? We've seen companies have done well even before this, right? As a lot of substitution happened from China to India, but it can pick up further as some of these companies also get benefit from the government in terms of incentives to set up, increase their manufacturing base. So chemicals is again a small sector, but again looks fairly promising, especially for specialty chemicals, I would say, going forward. So yeah, I think it's looking across the board. I would say, I think that's a good thing about Indian economy is that it's pretty well diversified. Unlike some of the other economies which are dependent on a few sectors, I think India economy is very well diversified across various sectors, and each of them can contribute in its way for the recovery over the next few years.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you so much for that. The next question is from Mr. Bhaskar. So given the current border tension between India and China, how should one look at this as far as their own investments are concerned? I mean, gains made in a day, made in 4 days, in a week's time, gets just wiped out. Okay, and even just to add to that, even from a longer term investment perspective, when planning one's investment, how much should one factor these kind of situations as far as investments are concerned?
So I think the external factors, some of the risks, I think will remain. It can come currently, as you rightly said, the India-China tension. Again, the same thing came up around a few months back, and one would have thought that would have really the market continue to move up. But as the market goes higher and the risk increases in terms of some of these factors leading to a correction in the market. And I think one doesn't know how it will pan out, but clearly I think large scale escalation looks unlikely. Nobody wants that. and even China doesn't want to really, at this point in time, already there is a lot of negative publicity for China across the world after the COVID crisis. They don't want to worsen that. But I think the market at these levels is prone to these kind of risk and corrections. And for that perspective, as I said, from an investor perspective, I think we should not look at really short term. Now at the margin of safety from a short term perspective is much less over here. If you look at from a valuation perspective, where the markets are, and in terms of the near term growth, what we are seeing either from the economy or from the corporate earnings. So the margin of safety is low, and the volatility or the downside can always be there. Though we think that a 10% downside would be a reasonable correction in the market, okay, where it will be bought into. So one should be a bit careful over there, not getting stuck, because there's some retail participation we have seen recently in the market that has led to a lot of stocks go up in the small cap space, and not so good companies also moving up. So one should be careful about getting sucked into that momentum and getting stuck into some of these stocks, and be careful about which companies one is investing into. And that's why it's advisable to go through the mutual fund route that diversifies your risk, and there is probably a better filtering mechanism, okay, to avoid some of these companies. Okay, I mean companies with poor management or financially unstable balance sheet or corporate governance issues. So that I would advise clearly to do that. I think a bit cautious from here. At the same time, one should not lose sight that investing into equities from a long-term perspective and these kind of events don't really matter. We have seen time and again, right? You go back in history in the last 30 years, okay, at least I've been in the market, I've seen these events have come in. The most recent event, like COVID crisis, markets have bounced back. So when you look back on some of these events, markets correct probably because of that 10, 15, 20, 30, 40%. But over a longer term, it doesn't really matter, right? As long as you continue to stay invested and continue to buy also in those dips, you are fairly okay as a long-term investor. So I'm not worried. And again, the starting point also of investing at this point in time, the market looks expensive optically because of the current depression in the earnings, but it's not actually that expensive. It's a fairly priced market, I would say. And from long-term investors, this is still a good market to invest. So as I mentioned earlier, from a 3-year perspective, we still think that the market can give 11-12% kind of a return, and funds can possibly give a slightly better returns, right? Because we think that the breadth of the market will improve going forward, and we've seen that, and that will provide opportunities for mutual funds to generate slightly better returns, which was not the case in the last 2 years, where we have seen that the breadth of the market was very narrow. Only a few stocks were going up, and mutual funds were underperforming the benchmark. I think that can turn around. So I think from a long-term perspective, it is still a good time, but invest slowly. Don't go it at one go. And if there's a market correction, definitely one should buy into that and not be worried about these skirmishes or small. I mean, these tensions. These are not. I don't think these are structural problems. These are kind of small intermittent noise, okay, which is there, okay, which can provide, if at all the market's correct, a good opportunity to buy into it.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you so much for that. Quite insightful. We'll just take the last couple of questions. We'll need to wrap up due to paucity of time. The next one is from Mr. Joydeep. Interesting one. India's GDP has contracted, and during the same period, the stock market has shot up. Okay. So is there a precipice ahead for the stock market? How long can this liquidity-driven rally last?
Yeah.
Again, the sustainability factor.
Yeah. I think it seems pretty kind of counterintuitive that when the GDP is declined, we have seen the worst GDP print in decades, right? Okay, and the market is up. I mean, that's the way it is, right? So yeah, while there is a good correlation between the market returns and GDP, but that is over a very long term. In the near term, I think it doesn't matter. It's about the outlook, liquidity, and the markets are forward looking, right? The markets look at how is the outlook going to be over the next 1, 2, 3 years, and tend to discount that much faster. And that's where the dichotomy comes between the current growth of the economy and the market returns. Again, if I go back, the market returns in the last, say, 2, 3 years, if you look at it, have been pretty subdued, while the GDP growth, nominal GDP growth, was still around 10-11%. Normally, over a longer term, we see that the correlation between GDP, nominal GDP growth, and the market, it's more or less similar, in the sense the long-term nominal GDP growth and the long-term market returns are more or less similar. I mean, market returns are probably slightly higher because of productivity improvement or efficiency some of the companies probably able to do, but there's a long-term correlation. But in the last 3 years, while GDP has grown, though at a lower pace, but market returns have been fairly subdued. So it's underperformed. And I think with this current decline in this year, the GDP is now going back. The market is slightly going ahead because it is looking that this year the GDP will decline probably by around 6% or so, 5 to 6% for the country. But next year, because of the recovery and because of the base effect and a lot of demand, for example, currently you're seeing that because of the COVID crisis, the demand, in some cases, the demand is permanently gone, right? Few sectors, for example, I mean, whatever you would have spent, say, probably on hotels or restaurants or theaters, that is gone. Okay, but a lot of demand is deferred. Like, for example, demand which was there for, say, two-wheelers. Okay, you didn't buy in the first quarter, and that's why the GDP growth is down. I mean, once things normalize, as the confidence comes back, what you intended to buy, you couldn't go out and buy. You will probably buy later. So it get pushed back by, say, 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. For example, if you wanted to paint your house, you couldn't do it, okay, in this period. But after things normalize, okay, say 6 months down the line, you'll go and paint the house. So that demand just gets deferred. And to that extent, next year, you could see a much sharper growth for some of these sectors, some of the industry. So next year, the GDP growth, but one is the base and one is the deferred demand, which gets pushed into the next year, could look much better. So I think market typically tends to look forward, and that's the reason why you're seeing the according. While at one end you're seeing the earnings, GDP is there. I mean, it could have even gone down. Sentimentally, things are weaker, but this time around it's not happened because of liquidity and low interest rates. Market is now willing to look beyond the near term and take a 2-3 year view and discount that today and do it. That's why you're not getting the market cheap. Normally, earlier in a crisis like that, and with GDP growth, you would have got the market much cheaper, and probably you would have made good returns when things recover, right? That's why we saw from a bottom in 2003-04, we had a fantastic rally in the market, and it gave you great returns. But this time around, it's happened much earlier and much quicker because of the liquidity. So liquidity, only it has done is that it has discounted the future earnings much ahead of time, and that's what it has done. But yeah, and that's the reason why you're seeing that dichotomy. But clearly, the reason is that we are expecting, and the market is also expecting, that your growth will recover next year and come back. Okay, say in next 2 years' time, we will be back to what our normal trajectory was, our underlying trajectory. Assuming if this event hadn't happened, okay, FY21, and the normal trajectory of economy, which was growing from FY19, I would say, not 20 also, we got impacted. That underlying growth in the economy, which was around potential around 5 to 6%, that trajectory where it will take till FY22-23, the market is discounting now and trying to factoring it because of the easy money and liquidity.
Sure. Thank you so much. And we'll take the last question for the session, which is on one of your funds from Mr. Ravindra on the Aditya Birla Frontline Equity. So would like to know that should I continue my SIP in Frontline, or should I probably switch to a multi-cap or a multi-asset fund as suggested by you? Which is the question also comes on the backdrop of the performance in the current context.
Sure. So I would say our Frontline Equity Fund is a large cap fund, biased fund, okay, and last 2 years, CY 18 and 19, there was some underperformance because we had a slightly broad-based portfolio. We were running a more diversified portfolio, and the narrow rally in the market impacted the fund. We had some mid-cap exposure, not much, okay, 12-13%, slightly higher, which didn't do well. Some of the large index weight stock like Reliance, we were underweight. But over a period of time, last 1 year, we have taken corrective action in the fund. We have consolidated the fund, make it slightly much more focused. We are seeing now the breadth of the market is starting to improve, which is helping us, and we're seeing that benefit the fund in the last 6 months, and we've seen the performance improve significantly over there. and our belief is that the breadth will continue to improve going forward. So our strategy here to run a more diversified portfolio will benefit you in the coming years. Secondly, we have taken some good calls in the pharma sector in the last year, which has benefited us in a few calls, and I think that should also sector which we are positive on. And some of the large index weights like Reliance also we corrected underweight, okay, when the stock corrected. So that is also behind us. So I think in this fund had a very strong, good long-term track record. If you look at, we just completed 17 years, and 17 years the fund has given around 16.5% return. In the last 15 years, despite the last 2 years underperformance, it's one of the top fund. And it's been a pretty consistent fund until this last 2 years, okay, when we've seen the peculiar phase in the market which was there. Also, our style has been value at a growth at a reasonable price. A lot of these stocks, expensive stocks, became very expensive, and we missed some of these stocks. We took this opportunity to add some of these stocks in the market correction, and that is also going to benefit this fund. So I would say that from here on, okay, we see this fund again coming back in terms of a long-term track record of steady performance, I would say, and one should continue to expect that. So for a large cap allocation, okay, which typically we are saying the large cap allocation should be around 25% of your total allocation into equities. I think one should continue to be invested in this fund. It's investing in the top 100 companies, and again, we are also as we see a cyclical rally in the economy, we are also well positioned to benefit from some of these stocks, okay, where we've taken smaller positions. So I think we should see this fund again starting to beat the benchmark. In the last 3 to 6 months, we've seen that happen. So I would say that you continue with this fund. We don't see any problem over there, and we are very confident that the long-term track record what the fund has in terms of its performance, we should able to come back in the coming years over here. So normally what happens is many funds, people look at the say 2-3 year performance and tend to switch the fund and move into somebody else other fund. But I think this is the fund which I've been managing now for the last 15 years, and I've seen multiple periods, okay, where there are periods 1 or 2 years of underperformance where we've been able to come back out of that every time. And the recent changes what we have done in the fund and the recent performance is testimony that things are now again coming back in the right direction for us. So I would say please stay invested over there and continue as long as your allocation in this fund is in line with your overall large cap allocation.
Great, thank you so much for that. I'm afraid we'll have to come to the end of this session now. Thank you so much, dear investors, for sharing your evening with us. Please get in touch with your relationship managers for any further questions that you may have. We will address it to the fund management team at Aditya Birla and have them answered on priority. Thank you so much, Mr. Mahesh. It was an excellent session. There were a lot of doubts which got clarified. There were a lot of insights that our investors, I'm sure, would have got into their investments. Over to your closing remarks, post which we can close the call.
No, thank you, Aki, for inviting me here. I think it's been a interesting period. I think we've seen a lot of interest here. My only passing remark is that, again, look at market from a long-term perspective. That's how you should look at, and even at these levels, it looks attractive. Be prepared at least. I mean, one should not get carried away the market momentum for what we're seeing. You would see corrections and pullbacks in the markets. Be prepared for that, but don't lose sight of your long-term allocation. I think at this point in time in asset allocation, we see that interest rates are going to remain low. Equities will continue to give you a reasonably good risk reward, and you continue to remain slightly overweight on your overall allocation towards equity. And I think that should continue. I think you should. I've seen a lot of investors pulling out money from the market at these levels. I think unless there is a need or you are over invested, I think one should not do that and continue to sit over your investment. I think they should give you handsome returns, okay, over the next 3 years time frame. Thank you, and wish you all the best and wish you good health during these times.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. Thank you, dear investors. We can close the call now.